You are listening to The Memory Keeper by Evan Vaile. Chapter 27.
Later that month, a gale descended over Melbourne and pelted the city with rain. The interminable cover of grey clouds stormed across the sky, and the thunder rumbling through the heavens sounded as though it was made of solid stone. Tall trees lining the nature strip swayed in the grip of the wind, while the gutters choked under the torrent of water. Vehicles crept through the downpour with their headlights bright and their windscreen wipers thrashing against the deluge. Two ex-program inmates scowled at the rotten weather as they peered out of the car's windows. The driver's eyes searched the night for a particular apartment number. Styles grew weary of the process and withdrew the map from the glove compartment. He carefully unfolded it atop the hot pizza boxes perched on his lap and scanned the torn page for the street they sought. Roan wiped the condensation from the inside of the windscreen with his hand, then glanced at his partner poring over the map. "Put that away, fool," he snapped. "I know where we are. The next building is the one we want." Roan guided the vehicle into the residents-only car park, then killed the engine. While the other man crumpled the map into a ball and shoved it back into the glove compartment, Roan reached around to the back seat and retrieved his red and blue cap bearing the pizza company's logo. Its bright colours matched his uniform and revealed him to be the delivery driver of one of the local pizza stores. The name tag pinned neatly to his t-shirt read Ronald. He was a bona fide employee of the company, though initially the manager had been reluctant to engage him. The young man had produced not one work reference to recommend him, and frankly seemed a little strange. The scars on his face suggested he spent time brawling in bars or worse, and the manager quietly suspected Ronald was a drug addict. But with so few pizza drivers on his books, he'd had little choice but to hire him. Hence the manager's surprise when Ronald demonstrated himself to be one of their best employees. He was punctual and displayed a rare passion for his work. Pizza delivery was not one of the most interesting jobs, yet the young man's enthusiasm was indefatigable. He was delighted to work overtime and never once complained about the short shifts. Apparently, it took him a while to find some of the customers' houses, because he sometimes returned late after delivering his quota of pizzas, but the manager considered that to be a minor issue and knew that Ronald would soon become more efficient at his job. Roan fitted the cap onto his head and checked his reflection in the rearview mirror. 6 months of freedom is not equivalent to 6 months of beauty sleep, and since his emancipation from the program, the inmate had not become a more attractive man. His skin was a patchwork of small scars, but it was the cut extending down his forehead, over his eye, and across his cheek which dominated his face. His hair was black and oily, and oozed out of the back of his cap in a small ponytail. There was something sinister in his gaze that no smile could conceal, and his eyebrows were cast in a permanent frown. Satisfied with his appearance, Roan turned to his companion. Since first setting eyes on a magazine photograph of the Hells Angels, Styles had fallen in love with motorcycle gangs. The buckles and chains and facial piercings, the inmate stole it all from a luckless biker before mutilating the body. He threaded countless steel shards through his ears, both of which were flat from countless fights in the program. He adorned himself in leather and acquired a pair of heavy black boots, very similar to those the guards used to wear. The knuckle dusters fitted the fingers of his right hand like a glove, his favourite weapon second only to the butterfly knife. He couldn't understand why Roan liked the pizza cutter. It was just so impractical. The two young men were an odd combination, one dressed as a pizza delivery driver and the other as a biker. Roan accepted the pizza box and bottle of soft drink from his companion. "We'll do it just like before," he growled. "I'll do the talking. You stay back until the door is open. And don't eat the pizza while I'm not looking this time." Styles shrugged and grunted. "Okay." The pair left the car and sprinted through the rain to the cover of the apartment building. Styles glanced around as he shook the water from his precious black jacket. The area was deserted of people. Roan led the way up the steps to the next level and stopped at the correct unit's door. Both of his hands were full carrying the pizza and bottle of soft drink. After checking that Styles was concealed in the stairwell, he swallowed down his excitement and rapped on the door. Moments later, there came the shuffle of footsteps in the apartment. The lock was released, and the door swung back to reveal a handsome man in his mid-20s, wearing jeans and a t-shirt. Behind him was a carpeted hallway and the sound of a television from an adjoining room. "Ah, good," the man said, his eyes on the cardboard box. When he looked up at the strange delivery driver, he was briefly startled, but hid his surprise by reaching for his wallet and withdrawing some money. "How much do I owe you?" he asked. Ronald told him, smiling broadly as he did so, just like the pizza store manager taught him to. The cash and the goods swapped hands, but in the exchange the soft drink fell to the carpeted floor. "I'll get it," the customer said, and stooped to pick up the bottle. Roan watched the man bend down in front of him. The ex-program inmate's courtesy smile shifted in aspect to become an evil grin, and he smoothly reached behind his back. His fingers wrapped around the pizza cutter, a unique kind of knife bearing a circular blade about the size of his palm. Pulling the weapon free of his pocket, he plunged it into the back of the man's neck with a single, powerful motion. Before the victim's fingers even touched the bottle, the blade stabbed clean through his vertebrae, disconnecting his brain from his body. A stream of blood squirted as high as the ceiling, and then he silently slumped to the carpet. Roan yanked the blade free of the dead man's neck and then picked up the pizza box. Hiding the pizza cutter beneath the box, he stepped over the body and started down the hallway, creeping toward the sound of the television. Stiles appeared at the threshold and dragged the corpse inside, leaving a bloody trail in his wake, then shut the door. "Hurry, Mark, the game's about to start," a woman called. The hall opened into a nicely furnished living room. A blonde-haired lady was sitting on the sofa. She turned at Roan's approach, obviously expecting to see her partner, and leapt off the couch at the sight of the bloodied delivery boy. "I'm here to deliver your pizza," he declared, with a manic light in his eyes. She backed toward the hallway leading to the bedrooms. "Where's my husband?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I'm afraid Mark's going to miss the game," Roan replied dramatically. He dropped the pizza box, revealing the knife in his hand. The woman shrieked and ran, but Roan pounced on her before she made it to the telephone. Her screams came in gasps as he turned her over, and then he clamped one strong hand over her mouth. She shook her head even as he nodded his, both answering the same unspoken question. When Roni placed the blade against the soft skin of her neck, she lay completely still, her chest heaving. Roni wiped her husband's blood from his eyes and asked, "Want to make a pizza?" Then he started cutting. The carpet was ruined when they dragged the bodies into the kitchen. Roan fired up the frying pan while Stiles used his butterfly knife to cut the tastiest pieces from the fresh corpses. Roan searched the cupboards and nodded to himself in appreciation when he saw the selection of herbs and spices, then tossed some meat into the hot pan. Stiles continued cutting, arranging the strips of raw meat neatly on a plate. "How come you get to cook again?" he complained. "Because you don't know how to," Roan replied, not taking his eyes off the pan. "The last time I let you near the kitchen, you burned the liver." "It was just a bit crispy, that's all," Stiles snarled. "I thought we already sorted this out," Roan said, stirring the contents of the pan with a wooden spoon. "You cut, and I cook. The pizza tastes better that way." Stiles grumbled unhappily but didn't argue any further. The pair were silent for a few minutes. Stiles finished with the bodies and diced the meat to his companion's approval. Two fluffy, cuddly cats emerged from the hallway and raced to the side of the dead woman, where they happily dipped in and tore at the innards of her stomach. "I don't get it," Stiles said, a frown creasing his forehead. "If we're serial killers, shouldn't we be chopping people up and putting them in breakfast cereal? The way I see it, we're pizza killers." Roan stopped stirring and rolled his eyes in frustration. "It's not cereal killers, you idiot," he spat. "It's serial killers, serial, he added, spelling out each letter. "It means we kill a lot." "Oh," Stiles said, looking much relieved at this revelation. "Okay, that's definitely us then." After 10 minutes of high heat, Ronan declared the meat ready to serve. The pizza in the box looked a little dented, but was otherwise entirely edible. The pair removed the ham and salami from the pizza before arranging their specially prepared cuts of meat in such a way that the finished product was indistinguishable from one picked up from the store. After microwaving it to a steaming perfection, they leaned forward and inhaled the aroma. They murmured in unison. "What kind of pizza is it?" Stiles asked. Roan smiled. "Pepperoni special," he replied, emphasizing the Roan in pepperoni. Stiles reached for a slice, but his companion slapped his hand away. "No, Sty," Roan admonished. "It's for the next customer." "Just a taste?" Styles asked sheepishly. "All right, just a taste," Roan agreed. The killers nibbled at the edges like mice at a piece of cheese. Then Roan reboxed the pizza and changed into a clean uniform he had brought with him. While the owners fed their cats, the murderers locked the door and departed with the pepperoni special. The address of the next customer was just around the corner, and Roan knew they would be annoyed that their pizza was late. Customers could be very rude, and some got very angry. But it didn't matter. He was sure that when they ate their delicious pizza, all would be forgiven. There was a bounce in his step as he descended the stairs. The deluge outside had abated, and the stars were shining. Anyone in the city who ordered a pizza could fall foul of him, and he looked forward to meeting them. It was just a matter of time. The two men hopped into their car, gunned the engine, then sped off down the street. 4 nights later, in the same apartment building, elderly resident Larry Fromberg finally relented to his wife's incessant nagging. He reached past the old photo of his war buddies and switched on the bedside lamp, then rolled over to face the dear old shrew. "Larry, listen to me when I'm speaking to you. Those cats have been meowing non-stop for the last few days. You should go and give that young man upstairs a piece of your mind, I tell you. Shame on him for not taking care of his pets. They shouldn't give animals to people if they can't look after them. How he thinks anyone else in this building can sleep at night with..." So Larry pushed the blankets back and sat up on the edge of the bed. After putting his false teeth in, he shrugged on his dressing gown, then shuffled out of the bedroom with his wife's complaints echoing down the hall. The clock on the wall above the kitchen stove indicated it was 10 o'clock. It took him a while to unlatch the deadlocks on his front door. Then he was outside in the cool night air, ascending the stairwell with slow steps. He cast his eyes around the car park and saw the young couple's sedan among the other vehicles. "They've probably gone away for a few days and didn't bother with the cats," he thought to himself. As he shuffled along the concrete floor of the building's balcony, he listened to the mournful yowl of the animals inside the unit directly above his. His knock on the door silenced their complaints, and he briefly imagined the expression of peace and tranquility which at that moment had surely appeared on his beloved wife's face. When he got no response from the young residents who lived there, he knocked again and waited. "Mark, are you here?" he called. "Nothing. The cats are keeping my wife awake. We can't sleep with all this racket. You're not supposed to have pets in the building anyway." The cats were meowing again and scratching at the door. Wrapping his dressing gown more firmly around himself, Larry headed off to find Mort, a long-time resident who had a key to the young couple's apartment. As he expected, Mort's fat bum was buried in his favourite sofa as he watched television, his heavy glasses perched on his nose. Mort knocked twice when he stood at the young couple's door, then inserted the spare key into the lock. At the sound of the latch turning, the cats grew quiet. No sooner was the door open than 2 blurs of fluff raced out and disappeared down the nearest stairwell. Larry's eyes weren't what they had once been, but he thought he saw a splash of red on the muzzle of the white cat. As Mort pushed the door wide open, the stench of decay accosted the men's nostrils. He recoiled, extracted a handkerchief from his trouser pocket and shielded his nose with it. "What is that rotten smell?" he gasped, staring into the darkness of the apartment. Larry remained silent, but felt the hot rush of fear from the pit of his stomach. He'd experienced many things in his long life, and he remembered all too clearly that terrible odor from his days as a World War II soldier on the killing fields. His eyes were drawn to the caked blood on the carpet. Reaching into the hallway, he flicked on the light and stared at the red trail that led into the apartment. When Mort realized what the broad crimson stripe on the floor was, the color drained from his face and he gulped loudly. Larry stepped over the threshold and moved down the corridor. The putrid stench of death was so thick in the air, he felt he was wading through it. He heard the chatter of the television, but his eyes never left the carpet. The hallway opened out into a lounge and an adjoining kitchen. He saw the legs first. Then he noticed the pattern of little red paw prints surrounding the 2 mutilated bodies. Larry didn't need to examine the corpses up close to be certain they were the young couple, side by side in death. Both of their chests were torn open in a gruesome display of the human anatomy. Larry had seen a lot of terrible things, but he felt his stomach turn at the sight before him. He glanced back down the hallway when he heard the creak of the floor beneath Mort's feet. Mort had started down the corridor on shaky legs, the handkerchief still firmly covering his nose. Larry raised his hand. Glad to avert his eyes from the cadavers, he fixed his gaze on Mort. "Call the police," he said, trying not to breathe in the foul air as he spoke. "Don't come in. Just call the police."
That is the end of this chapter. To listen to the next chapter on YouTube or to purchase the digital ebook from Amazon, see the links in the description.